Southern live oaks are a true emblem of the American South. Some of the famous specimens have names like treaty oak, Emancipation Oak, or council oaks. That tells us that these old oak trees were landmarks where major decisions took place. Join us at the table to learn more about these majestic trees and the ferns that sometimes make their home on their branches.
Welcome to the Steel Magnolias podcast. We are two sisters here to have uplifting conversations about life in the South.
The South is full of beautiful diversity in landscape, people groups, and culture, and we want to showcase each part. We've got plenty of room at our table, so pull up your chair.
Welcome back to Season 6. We are in full swing. I am Laura Beth.
And I'm Lainey, and we're going to discuss some of that diversity in landscape today.
Yes, we are. But before we do, I now know the best way to get listeners to send us a message or an email.
How's that?
Because while y'all love.
We love hearing from
y'all.
Well, how do we do
All
it?
we got to do is pronounce a southern city incorrectly.
Well, there's plenty of those I've done wrong over the years.
The people of Mississippi rose up last week to defend the Marathon gas station that I'd mentioned in the city it dwells in.
With the wonderful po' boys? That
Yes,
one? Okay.
Yes, number one po' boy. Gaucher. I said Gautier.
Oh, that
It's
sounds
Gaucher.
French. Gaucher. Okay.
Gaucher. So, yes. And these things are important. So that's actually why I wanted to bring it up. Not to just make a little laugh about, us being finicky about pronunciations, but it matters.
It matters, and we're
from
learning
there.
along with y'all as we go, too.
Yeah, somebody lives there, has relatives there. Or
And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get it.
But, what I was thinking about was, we have a Lebanon, Tennessee, that's actually not very far from us.
And people say Lebanon.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's not the country.
I'm like, oh, how different of a place that you're talking about than what we're, accustomed to. Yeah. So I get it. It's important. I believe it's important, but I just think it's so funny the way it did rise up some hairs on the back of somebody's head.
I love it. Well, y'all stick with us. We're trying.
That's right. We're learning too. So,
I'm probably going to say this word wrong, but what we're talking about today is Quercus virginiana.
Good for you.
Hey.
See, I see those things and I'm like, I'm just not going to mention that.
Well, do you know
because
why
don't
I
how to say
mention it? Because the second word
Okay.
in that scientific name clearly suggests that these are in Virginia,
Ah.
but they're elsewhere.
Yeah.
They continue. These beautiful trees go south to Florida, west to Texas and Oklahoma. They do love. I'm jumping in. Is it okay that I just jumped in?
Go for it. Yeah. I mean, they are everywhere. I was trying to look to see in my notes where I had all the places that they were.
Well, they're mostly southeast.
Yes, for sure. But I mean,
or southern at least. I mean, Texas isn't southeast.
Well,
they're about to be in our
they're
conference.
in our conference. So, but yeah, central Texas, I think, would be kind of as west as you would see these. Even some in southwest Oklahoma, I read.
Yeah.
All along the Gulf Coast.
Right. And they love, they grow well in salty soil and in shade.
Yes.
So that makes them, really going to be a lot in those coastal places.
Right. Georgia, South Carolina, the East Coast there, North Carolina. I actually found an incredible map that I'll put in our show notes in the description of this episode that you could see if you're even close to one of these. It has them marked.
I wish they would grow here in Tennessee
I know.
because I would love nothing more than to have a huge one where, the way these limbs grow, it just makes you want to climb a tree.
Well,
but they don't survive well in freezing temperatures, and we get a lot of freezing.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned in your intro they're just so. I don't know if you said symbolic or.
I said they're an emblem of the South.
Emblem.
And
that's what you said. They're iconic.
They really are.
And what's funny to me is when
is Spanish moss, which is sometimes on them.
When I see a southern live oak, my heart just melts as if I did grow up with it. Like it feels nostalgic.
Yeah,
to me, and I didn't grow up near any at all. I'm wondering sometimes if that has to do with movies.
Oh, probably.
Because there are some very nostalgic movies that put the southern live oak in a prominent location. I'm talking about Forrest Gump.
Oh, yeah.
Jenny and Forrest as little kids playing under this glorious tree. And then fast forward to the end where he's burying Jenny under that same oak tree. I mean, like,
make me cry.
That oak tree was it was like a cast of a character there.
Right. As much as the bench in the park.
Right. It's true. The Notebook. Most people have seen that one. See, but like, it's just, I think the scene that I remember in that one is like they're riding bikes and they're in love, and it's just like
Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah.
There was all that eeriness around. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know a lot of people get excited when they start seeing palm trees as they get to the coast, and that's fun for me too. But what makes me melt is the southern live oak.
I know. They're awesome.
Breathtaking.
We've seen some good ones too, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I just love how these limbs they'll grow down and then back up.
Yes.
And sometimes even touching the ground. In fact, a lot of the huge ones that you'll see, that people go to see, they've had to put supports.
Yes.
So that they don't break off because they
there's
are quite long.
There's no climbing allowed on them, and it looks like the most epic of climbing trees. I know we've mentioned that when we've talked about the angel oak in Charleston, but yeah, you mentioned emblem. I said iconic. They're just a symbol of strength as well. When I think of the branches, like you were just talking about, I mean, it almost feels like outstretched
They're hugging
arms,
you,
like inviting you in.
I know.
Like.
Well, they can cover. The crowns of the largest southern live oaks, according to the National Wildlife Federation, can be 150 feet.
Wow.
On average, though, the crown spread is 80 feet.
Okay.
And the height of 50 feet. That's big.
That's huge.
The branches usually stem from a single trunk.
Yeah.
Which can grow to 5 or 6 feet.
Yeah.
The trunk.
Yeah. That's incredible. So, yeah, in case you're just jumping in and going, so these are just oak trees? No, these are different. A live oak tree or southern live oak tree is unlike most oak trees because oak trees in general, they shed annually. So like each fall, they're dying off. But a southern live oak, they don't lose their leaves in the autumn, and
they're nearly evergreen.
Yeah.
They're not, but they're nearly evergreen.
They look alive all year long, basically. So it is different than just your typical oak tree.
They have little tapered acorns on them, and those are, a source of food from a lot of different animals, birds and mammals. I read again from that National Wildlife Federation: sapsuckers, mallards, wild turkey, bobwhite quail, the Florida scrub jay, the wood duck, squirrels, black bears, and deer.
I've never heard of a sapsucker, but I can guess what it does.
Right? And the Florida scrub jay is actually a threatened bird. It relies on the scrub form of the southern live oak for nesting.
Wow.
Actually, lots of animals and birds use these for their nest as well. Lots of other birds.
Wow.
Do that.
Well, I know you were describing like the size and the circumference a minute ago. Did you talk about the age yet? Because I think that is what really blows my mind.
Yeah.
Is the age. So some of these live like well over 400 years, up to maybe 1,000
Isn't that
years.
wild?
Like, pause. Our country is not even 300 years old. Like, we're getting close. Well,
But the
we're
Native
not even
Americans had been looking at those trees already for quite a while.
Yeah. So a lot of the ones that we'll talk about maybe even later are between 500 and 1,000 years old. That is just mind-blowing.
And what I said in the intro, too, when you think about something that's been around that long, you think about, like, Native American tribes that would have had treaties and...
Yes.
Like, they actually were there for that.
Yeah.
That's
the
wild.
same tree. They were looking at the same tree. That is crazy.
That is really wild. When we went to Israel, I remember thinking, like, there's some of these olive trees that are so old. Like, who saw this same tree? Who biblically saw this same tree? Anyway.
That reminds me of a Sean Dietrich quote that he said, I don't remember who he was talking about. It was in one of his novels, but he was saying she was old enough to have a signed copy of her Bible. Like, as if, like, one of the gospel writers themselves
Oh my gosh.
signed it.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even get it at first. I was looking at you a little lost. That's hilarious.
Like a disciple signed it.
Oh my gosh.
An autographed copy of
A gift from Timothy.
the Bible. Yeah. So
Well, these are fast growing trees, but their growth rate starts to slow with age.
yeah.
So they usually reach that maximum trunk diameter at around 70 years.
Okay.
They may continue to grow up or out, but that trunk is pretty established, I think, by that point.
Yeah, I mean, extremely, extremely strong. I read that there was a naval vessel, the USS Constitution.
Yes, I read this too.
It was nicknamed Old Ironsides because live oaks were used to craft it, and it said after her live oak hull survived repeated cannon fire during the War of 1812.
Yeah. That's
Hello.
so awesome. Well, these were used in shipbuilding, not just for that ship,
Right.
but in general. They're supposedly really good against disease and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
That's a strong
See
tree.
why that would be.
So, yeah, I mean, there's some that, like I said, I've got a map that can show you some that are just known and around the coast especially. But there's some that I feel like are a true tourist stop. And so I wanted to mention a few of those.
For sure. I've got a list here too.
One you and I went to, the Angel Oak, which is in
yes.
Charleston. More specifically, it's on Johns Island. And it is glorious. Then there's the Seven Sisters Oak,
This is the largest one.
oldest at 1,000 years old, in Lewisburg, Louisiana.
Oh, mine says Mandeville, Louisiana.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. Oh, well, somewhere
maybe
around
those
that
are
region.
nearby provinces. And then did you have the, is it called the Ceylon Oak in Florida? I had down that was a big one. And then Dueling Oaks in New Orleans.
I have several on my list.
What else do you
So,
have?
Should I just give the places? The largest live oak in Texas is in Rockport. It's called the Big Tree.
That's a good name.
The Big Tree.
The Big Tree.
Mobile, Alabama has the Boynton Oak.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many. I can't do all of these. College Station on the Texas A&M campus. They have the Century Tree.
Sorry, I was going to say we saw one in Thomasville,
We did.
Georgia.
It's on the list.
It
The Big
is
Oak.
The Big Oak.
Yes, it's on the list as well. Wilmington, North Carolina has the Airlie Oak. There's so many. The Lover's Oak in Brunswick, Georgia. And speaking of Georgia, this is their state tree.
That's right.
So,
And I think it's the only southern state that's their state tree. So they claimed it.
yeah. So they're in so many of the states. But yeah, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida all have them. North Carolina.
But yeah, I mean, if you are anywhere near one of these places,
Put it on your list.
Yeah, some of them are close enough that you might just drive by it. Like that one in Thomasville was right on a street corner.
Yes, and I mentioned, listen to that episode if you head to Thomasville, but they had a really cool feature that we didn't know about until I got back home, where you can get a picture of yourself or your group with the tree. They have a camera set up.
I totally forgot about that. And
And
it had a
so-
cute name or something. So yeah.
The Big Oak Cam or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like positioned such that it's going to get you and the
And
whole
the tree
tree
in your-
because there's no way you can't.
You
I don't care if you've
can't.
got a selfie stick. You can't get. I mean,
Yeah, unless
yeah.
you've got a drone, maybe. How you're doing a
That's true.
whole picture of the whole tree.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, drive by it, or like the one in Johns Island in Charleston. Like we had to be going there. You know, like that
Yes,
wasn't.
you're not going to happen upon that one.
But still, it was so worth
But
it.
it's worth it. And they were mentioning, that they have, you have to schedule this, but like, brides that get their
Oh, like their bridal shot.
done there. But I was thinking, like, you're still just getting a piece of it.
Right.
Like, there's no way you could, that would make for a beautiful bridal photo.
What wouldn't in Charleston?
Well,
Hello.
you're
You could be in
right.
anyone's yard or alleyway or anything, and it would be
Really?
glorious.
That is so true.
Yeah. So Anything else that you would share about the southern live oak? I mean, I feel like we've painted
One
it in
other
all
I
its
didn't
glory.
mention is right in the city park in New Orleans, the McDonough Oak.
Okay.
So that one sounds like it's in a location that would be easy to see.
Uh-huh.
I haven't been to New Orleans in a long time. I think
neither.
it's time for a visit.
Me neither. Well, one thing I had not heard of, but you being my smart sister and one that knows lots of things horticulturally speaking,
Tree hugger over here.
I did not know about resurrection ferns, and I certainly didn't know that I didn't know that name, but I certainly didn't know that it was like its own plant. I thought it was part of the southern live oak.
Yeah, it looks like
You can consider it part of
Yeah.
the way it grows, but it is its own species.
It is.
And I didn't
it's
know
even
that.
It's pulling for, it's called the resurrection fern.
Yeah.
The reason it has that name is it looks like it dies
Yes.
from
Yeah.
not getting rain.
Yes.
So it's usually really pretty green, but without getting rain, it starts to get dry and kind of curl up.
Yes.
It looks like it's dead and brown or
Yes.
brownish gray. But then it just takes a little rain and it pops back to life.
resurrected.
So unlike the true resurrection that really was a death and then a rising, this is looks dead. And this is the possum fern. No, I'm just kidding. It looks dead, but it's not.
This is perceived death.
That's right.
Yes. And again, just found throughout the southeast, right? But maybe as far as north as it could get up to New York.
Actually, I think this is even found in Central and South America.
Okay.
Resurrection fern, not
Okay.
live oaks.
Okay. Yeah.
It is native to here, but I believe it's also Central and South America. You'll find this growing on other trees and stumps and
Yeah. It would grow on Magnolias and cypresses.
yeah.
I mean, rocks, fence posts. It doesn't have to attach
cool.
to another.
But it's kind of like, how an air plant just pulls from the air and the water in the atmosphere. That's what feeds it.
Mm-hmm. That's what this is.
That's how this works too. So it can lose 75% of its water content during a typical dry period, and sometimes even up to 97% during a drought.
Wow. That's
and
when
still
it's
be alive.
looking really brown.
It's looking really brown.
Yeah. But yeah, it would have to anchor itself to something is what I understand.
Yeah.
So even if that's like I said, a stump or a rock or a picket fence, it feels like it's in that moss category, but it's prettier.
It's
I
a
don't know
little
if it's
fuller.
prettier. It's just different.
It's fuller than
Yeah.
moss. But by contrast, most plants can only lose 10% of their water content before they die.
Wow.
So that kind of tells you a little bit about
Wow.
how different this is.
Oh man, that is
Isn't that
impactful.
wild? Yeah.
That really makes me understand how finicky some plants are with water.
Yeah. Not too much.
Not too much, not too little. Yeah, yeah.
Well, in 1997, the resurrection fern was taken into space above the Space Shuttle Discovery to watch its resurrection in zero gravity. So I guess it still did that there. I didn't say a whole lot about it. But
Yeah.
I always think that's interesting, what a change in atmosphere
Yeah.
does.
Huh. That's crazy. Well, wonder what they found. I'll have lots of pictures and videos to put on socials this week because, like I said, we've seen some of these, and I saw even one in Ocean Springs.
Oh.
I saw a southern live oak right outside the museum that I was waiting to open. I was
Did
like,
it
well,
have some resurrection
it did
fern on it?
It did. See, now that you've pointed it out to me, I
start
see
noticing
It's
it.
just like learning a new vocabulary word.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
like,
and then you see it everywhere.
everybody's been using this.
So
This is
true.
everywhere.
Well, this is kind of like Spanish moss where you'll see it on the tree, but it's not going to kill the tree, unlike we did an episode on kudzu that you can
Killer.
link to.
Yes.
That will kill
Yes.
plants
Yes.
or anything it gets covered up on.
That's
true.
true.
It'll tear a house down.
Because it's not
If it's
native
growing.
to here. We shouldn't have ever had it, but
That's
maybe
right.
I covered that in that episode. I don't know. It sounds like I'm still kind of fired up about it. But the southern live oak, and I don't know if the resurrection fern as well, but they are native to
Yes.
here. So,
yes.
I mean, again,
Meant to be here.
meant to be here. Going to be good for our soils and our habitats that live here. What else is important about resurrection fern other than just knowing about it?
I just think
just
that's
pretty.
It's just, and it's so iconically Southern that I've had this on my list for a little while.
Yeah.
And I thought we would pair them together.
Yeah.
Since
I
they're
think,
often found together.
didn't we pair Spanish moss and kudzu together? Does that sound right? Y'all, it's been so many years. I don't remember.
I didn't think we did, but maybe we did.
Maybe I'll look up both episodes if you're
'em
interested
both.
in Spanish moss as well. That's a very interesting piece of Southern culture.
I think I said this on the Spanish moss episode, but I will tell you that I have been told by wiser sources than myself.
Yeah.
If you're traveling, do not take Spanish moss off the trees and take it home as a souvenir. Go buy some in a package at Michael's.
Okay.
Because it has mites and stuff like that in it, and you don't want to be touching that with your hands.
Oh, gross.
Things we wouldn't think of. I know that about bird's nest now that I've fondled a few of them, that I've heard that you're not supposed to do that.
Never, ever touch a bird's nest.
With your bare hands. Put some gloves on or something if you're going to do that. Because it's same. Well, think about what all happens in that nest. But yeah, it can have mites and things. I hope y'all aren't having your pastry and coffee. Sorry, I didn't mean to get into all that. But I'm trying to help you out.
That's so.
And I remember on a tour somebody saying, do not take the moss. Trust me, it's worth buying that at Michael's.
Yeah.
You don't want that in your suitcase.
This is the most expensive free souvenir you will ever take home. Yeah. Well, we had a couple of people that wrote us reviews this week.
Thank you.
Just a couple, and I really appreciate those of you that did. We're hoping to reach some new people this season. So would you do us a favor and just write up a little something on what you like about the show? Short is fine. Like one sentence, 2 sentences. It does not have to be like a full review.
No, in fact, some people probably wouldn't even read it if it's too long.
No, but
we would read it, but everybody wouldn't.
But you know, if you're an Apple Podcast app user, that's what a lot of you listening are using, and all you got to do is be on the page where the Still Magnolias podcast show is, and you just scroll to the bottom, and there's going to be 5 empty stars. So ideally, you give us 5 stars, but of course that's up to you.
But you do what you think is
But
right.
yeah, you touch the number of stars that you believe the show should receive, and then even just a little bit more below that, it says write a review. So you just touch that and write a couple of sentences. It might want you to give it like a little title, like a must listen, or Southern charm or something like that. But don't overthink it. But we would really appreciate it, because it helps. Apparently, it helps people find us, because when people are giving reviews, it somehow shows Apple that like this is an active show that has listeners that are engaged and blah, 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 blah.
So even if you've listened for 5 years and never done that, jump on and do it.
Yes. I do that all the time. I'm like, oh my goodness, I love this person and I don't even follow them on Instagram, or
yes.
Sometimes it's something you're so accustomed to that you're like, that's funny. I don't even, I'm not even on their mailing list, or I'm not even, and I love them and I would love to hear from them. And then all these other people that you follow, you're like, why do I follow them?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that too.
Anyway, so yes.
And we got some fun stuff coming up, giveaways and etc.
Yes.
So you should be following us.
If you're a lover of movies, especially Southern classics, we have got you covered for spring. Mm-hmm. Giveaways are coming. And as we teased a little bit last week, we are really hoping to have some gatherings this year, in-person gatherings. And so if that piques your interest, make sure that you're on our mailing list and just stay tuned for that and be thinking about if that might be something that you have some capacity in your calendar for. So
yes. And I hear from just even friends that oftentimes they want someone to travel with, like maybe it's, they just need a buddy to travel with.
Yes.
And so I think there are needs out there, then maybe we can help fill that for you.
Absolutely. We've heard from people that they want to tag along on some of our
Adventures
for podcasts and for fun. And So we're just going to try and make that a possibility for y'all. So hope I've piqued your interest in teasing that up.
We'll go find a live oak somewhere.
Yeah, that would be so fun. Okay, y'all have a great week. Peace be with y'all. You've just listened to an episode of the Steel Magnolias podcast, an independent show funded solely on support from listeners like you, and a few advertisers from time to time. For reminders of what we just said and links to what we just mentioned, take a look at the description of this episode. They are right there. Are you enjoying the show? We hope you'll text a friend or loved one to tell them about this podcast. And make sure they know how to get to a podcast first. We invite you to join our mailing list to be the first to know about episodes, giveaways, and events. Sign up at steelmagnoliaspodcast.com.